Hello and welcome to the Minutes to Win It podcast. I'm Big Italy 42. He's Jason Gobo at JGobo11. We're talking about NBA slate for tonight, of course, Tuesday night. Talking about some guys who are going to see, an uptick, downtick in minutes, maybe more production based on some injuries, things like that. So starting off here at point guard, Jeff Teague, been banged up recently. Probable for tonight, he should play. I don't see any reason why he won't. Did play 26 minutes last game, and not a guy that's necessarily big time on your radar, but he does change some things for the rest of the team. You expect him to see, 28 to 30 minutes. We saw Dennis Schroeder, who saw 33, 29, 32 minutes in three previous games, just 16 in the last game. So he's a guy that's just about completely off my radar now that Teague's back. So Teague, yes, he comes back in, and I suppose he's a viable option in a tournament because, it's not a bad matchup now that there's no Marcus Smart. I mean, Isaiah Thomas not nearly the defender that Marcus Smart is, but either way, really all it does is just kill Schroeder's value.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. You're not going to see Schroeder seeing 25-plus minutes anymore. I just think Teague doesn't play big enough minutes for me to really, get a whole upside out of him. I know he can, but I just think guys around that price, Conley, Isaiah Thomas, I'd just rather have them over Teague tonight.
Yeah, and then like I mentioned with Marcus Smart, that's going to bump up the minutes for Isaiah Thomas. If you're just looking at the game logs, it's a little bit misleading because there were a couple blowouts in there. But as long as we're seeing Marcus Smart out, expect Isaiah Thomas to be in the 32 to 35 minute range, and maybe more if they need him to score down the stretch if this one ends up being a close game. So he's a guy you can safely project for big time minutes, and unless this one turns into a blowout. But I don't see a blowout on the horizon for either one of these teams, and Vegas certainly doesn't either.
No, this is going to be a high-scoring game tonight. Both these defenses, Boston's decent, but I still think the pace of play with Atlanta there and Boston's going to allow a ton of fantasy points. And without Smart, that's kind of the glue that holds it all together for Boston, I think. And without him, Evan Turner going to get a bump in minutes. He played 32, 26, and 24. Played 24, 24, and 33 when Smart was out before. So great value play tonight. Not a big score, but solid playmaker.
Yeah, and speaking of other guys from Boston as well, Avery Bradley, guy who dealing with an injury there for a little while, went 26-20 in minutes and 31, 25, and 40 in the last game. Despite the fact that he's played 20 and 25 minutes in two of the last four games, scored at least 18 real points in each of the last four. So he's a guy that you can probably safely project for 32 to 35 minutes as well. And we've seen it before, him be a minutes monster, like the last game how he played 40, where you might see him play minutes like that because he's a great defender. And, especially facing off against a team like Atlanta, you got a streaky shooter in Kyle Korver that you don't want getting hot. So if you need him to be out there guarding the perimeter and trying to slow down Kyle Korver from getting his shot off, then you could see him getting some extra minutes there as well.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I like Bradley. He's been shooting the ball well. It's always been a thing with him, whether he's on, whether he's off. So I think at this price, it's starting to come up on both sides. I definitely like him just because shooting guard is a little weak tonight.
Yeah, and one more shooting guard here, Will Barton, a guy who's been very, very consistent over the last 6 games, despite his minutes going way up and way down. 31, 37, 37, 22, 26, 27. You imagine he's going to fall somewhere in the 28-ish range in a game like this one tonight. He's been very productive. He's a guy that you and I talk about for cash games, and we're kind of on the fence about it. A guy that you don't feel great about because you expect to play less than 30 minutes. But like you said, it's a weak position, and relative to some other guys around him, on a per-minute basis, he's been much more productive. So not quite the floor you necessarily expect, despite the fact that he's really shown it recently. He's a guy that I still feel confident in because he's a big part of that offense when he is on the floor.
Yeah, he's been shooting the ball very well. 49% of the season, but looking at the last few games, 70%, 50%, 40%, 58%, 50. I could just keep going. The guy's been lights out from the field. I just think that helps his range. I know one of these nights it's going to have an off night, but I don't think tonight. I think Clippers are – the defense just isn't there this season. Never really has been, but it's been extremely bad this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And then looking at small forward, obviously Wilson Chandler still being out for the season now officially. Danilo Gallinari will continue to be locked into big minutes. And obviously you and I both love Paul George tonight. That's your safest bet. But if you can't quite pay up for him, we got Kenneth Faried, who's doubtful. More on that front court situation in a second. But Gallinari gets the biggest bump in usage when he doesn't play. Not expected to play, of course, being doubtful. So Gallinari at his price, just under $7K on both sites, makes a lot of sense as a guy that's going to play 35-plus minutes and really is the main scorer. Will Barton really being number 2?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. I think if you're going with a balanced lineup, because, Paul George's salary is starting to creep up there. Gallinari, 6,700 there on DK. Really like that price tag. Dude brings a ton of upside as well.
Yeah, Jeff Green, another guy we want to talk about at small forward here. That he's played at least 28 minutes in 5 straight games. Has been not tremendously productive over his last couple games, but relative to his salary, he's still paid it off in cash games. So he's a guy, especially if Zach Randolph sits out again, he's questionable for tonight. We'll see. He's kind of been questionable game time decision for the last few games here. It's a knee issue though, so seems to think that they're going to tend to err on the side of caution here. And with Jeff Green, I mean, he's a guy that can be a very good scorer when he gets minutes. And really on the opposite side of that is another guy that's on a minutes limit in Chandler Parsons, who they say he was on a 23-minute limit. He played 24 last game. He's another guy that would be a viable play if he's playing a full complement, but he's just not. So if you're looking between those two guys, I think Jeff Green, due to the fact that he's going to play more minutes, has got to be the play.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. I mean, Parsons going to be fun once he gets back, but I mean, right now, Green locked in for big minutes easy.
Yeah, absolutely. And then at power forward here, Pau Gasol really the one we're going to talk about as far as minutes. He's been very productive on a per-minute basis, but has played either 27 or 28 minutes in 4 straight games. So really a guy that is tournament only for me because, like we said last year, Thibodeau kind of ran these guys into the ground, playing them, upwards of 40 minutes most games. But now this season with Pau Gasol, they're kind of taking it easy on him and giving him some rest. I mean, plenty of depth in that front court with Taj Gibson, Joakim Noah, and everyone. So he's a guy that you love him, and the matchup seems good on paper. But if he's only playing 28 minutes, I mean, I'm just not a huge fan of his price, especially not in cash games.
Yeah, I mean, for that price tag, I want guys playing 30-plus, 35-ish, max. I mean, I think that's just what you want if you're paying over 7K. I just think too many other guys in that matchup are going to play huge minutes tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Zach Randolph, we mentioned there. Game time decision, questionable, whatever you want to do there. I mean, he's really going to impact guys like JaMychal Green and Marc Gasol. JaMychal Green going to see some extra minutes if Gasol sits once again. You look at his last couple games, 21, 23, 30, 25. He's a guy who's been getting, upper teens anyway, around 20, even if Randolph doesn't play. But it's going to depend on the game flow there, if they're going big, if they're going small. Not really a guy that I'm a big fan of here either way. Really what this changes for me, if Randolph doesn't go, is I'm going to be playing more Marc Gasol.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with you there. I mean, I think Gasol, offensively, it gives him a big boost just because Randolph, he puts up his fair amount of shots. I think that just turns it over to Gasol and gives him a bit more upside.
Yeah. And then Kenneth Faried, who we mentioned a little bit earlier, a guy that you pointed out that had a really nice game, Darrell Arthur, known more as a scorer than anything else throughout his young career, but 34 minutes last game, 21-8 against Golden State. Obviously a much, much tougher matchup there than the one that he'll see tonight against the Clippers. Blake Griffin, athletic, great offensive player, doesn't seem to care too much about playing great defense. So Darrell Arthur, assuming that Faried sits, he makes for a decent play there. And so does Nikola Jokic down low. He's nice and cheap on both sides. And we were looking at his game logs earlier, 32, 18, and 27 minutes last 3. But the 18-minute game against Phoenix was against a Phoenix team that went small. And this is definitely not a matchup where you expect that the Clippers are going to be small because they're never small down low. I mean, you got Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan down low. You're going to need as many big bodies as you can, especially if Faried doesn't play. So Jokic could be a sneaky, cheap play tonight that could see around 30 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I really like him on DK, or if you want to roster 2 centers and free up some space. Definitely gives you some big-time upside. And like you mentioned, it's just kind of a matchup thing with him for minutes. And tonight, we're probably looking at upwards of 20, 25-plus minutes, probably no more than 30. I mean, I love him for 4K on DK.
Yeah, and 4,300 on FanDuel, not bad either. But like you said, if you want one of these other centers we've mentioned, makes more sense to play him on DraftKings there. But all right, hopefully we helped you out with some minutes, some rotation, some guys to get on your radar there. Find us on Twitter at DF Cafe. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Got lots of other great content at dailyfantasycafe.com.